We now enter upon a series of meditations which, nevertheless, at bottom contains only a single thought, constituting of itself one organic whole. If I could at once communicate to you this single thought in the same clearness with which it must necessarily be present to my own mind before I begin my undertaking, and with which it must guide me in every word which I have now to address to you, then from the first step of our progress, perfect light would overspread the whole path which we have to pursue together. But I am compelled gradually, and in your own sight, to build up this single thought out of its several parts, disengaging it at the same time from various modifying elements. This is the necessary condition of every communication of thought, and only by this its fundamental law does that which in itself is but one single thought become expanded and broken up into a series of thoughts and meditations. Such being the case, and especially as I am not here to repeat what has been already known of old, but to put forth new views of things, I must request of you at the outset not to be surprised if our subject does not at first manifest that clearness which, according to the laws of all communication of thought, it can acquire only through subsequent development. And I must entreat you to look for perfect light only at our conclusion, when a complete survey of the whole shall have become possible. Nevertheless, it is the duty of every man who undertakes to propound any subject whatever, to take care that each separate thought shall assume its proper place in his arrangement, and be produced there with all the distinctness which it is possible to throw around it in that place, at least for those who can appreciate distinct language, and are capable of following a connected discourse. And I shall use my most earnest efforts to fulfill this duty. With this first and only premonition, let us now, without further delay, proceed to our subject. A philosophical picture of the present age is what we have promised in these lectures. But that view can only be called philosophical which refers back to the multiform phenomena which lie before us, in experience to the unity of one common principle, and, on the other hand, from that one principle can deduce and completely explain those phenomena. The mere empiricist, who should undertake a description of the age, would seize upon some of its most striking phenomena, just as they presented themselves to casual observation, and recount these, without having any assured conviction that he had understood them all, and without being able to point out any other connection between them than their coexistence in one at the same time. The philosopher who should propose to himself the task of such a description would, independently of all experience, seek out an idea of the age, which indeed in its own form, as idea, cannot be apparent in experience, and exhibit the mode in which this idea would reveal itself under the forms of the necessary phenomena of the age. And in doing so he would distinctly exhaust the circle of these phenomena, and bring them forth in necessary connection with each other through the common idea which lies at the bottom of them all. The first would be the chronicler of the age. The second would have made a history of it a possible thing. In the first place, if the philosopher must deduce from the unity of his presupposed principle all the possible phenomena of experience, it is obvious that in the fulfillment of this purpose he does not require the aid of experience, that in following it out he proceeds merely as a philosopher, confining himself strictly within the limits which that character imposes upon him, paying no respect whatever to experience, and thus absolutely a priori, as this method is termed in scientific phraseology. And in respect to our own subject, it is clear that he must be able, a priori, to describe time as a whole, and all its possible epochs. It is an entirely different question whether the present time be actually characterized by the phenomena that are deduced from the principle which he may lay down, and thus whether the age so pictured by the speaker be really the present age, should he maintain such a position as we, for example, shall maintain it. On this part of the subject, every man must consult for himself the experience of his life, and compare it with the history of the past, as well as with his anticipations of the future. For here the business of the philosopher is at an end, and that of the observer